καλωσορίσω βεβαίως πρώτα και την Υπουργό, την κυρία Erato Kozakou Marcoullis, που είναι εδώ μαζί μας για να συμμετάσχει διαζώσει στο πάνελ, αλλά και τους τρεις προσκεκλημένους, οι οποίοι θα συνδεθούν μαζί μας διαδικτυακά. Out of the ambassador's speech on behalf of the minister, of course, I keep the notion, the concept of minilateralism, a blend of multilateralism and regionalism, which I find is quite an interesting and rather new concept as a proposed way forward for Cyprus. Now, let me open the panel discussion by addressing first Dr. Prodromou over at the Fletcher School of Diplomacy at Tufts University. Elizabeth, hi. Welcome to the panel discussion. You're an expert in conflict resolution. The minister's speech we've just heard focused on a number of bilateral, trilateral, multilateral cooperation formations. Most actors in the region, with the notable exception, of course, of Turkey, see beneficial synergies in such formations. In your opinion, how could Cyprus make the best out of this kind of collaborations?
Good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening. And I want to begin by congratulating the organizers and thank you for this wonderful forum and also for allowing all of us to participate wherever we are on the planet. I think this is a particular inflection moment for Cyprus and for the region as a whole. You mentioned conflict resolution. I also work on issues related to cultural and religious heritage, to religious freedom and geopolitics. And Cyprus can take the lead on this inflection moment. This is a time both with COVID-19 that there's a renewed dialogue and hopefulness about recognizing global solidarity, human solidarity, and moving from the local to the global. And this is also a moment of recognizing the urgency of small states and unusual actors. And in this regard, I would also include religious actors in addressing existential issues. And these, I think, the three existential issues of climate change and disruption, zoonotic illnesses or public health pandemics, and weapons proliferation, these are all existential issues that Cyprus can take the lead on. When it comes to questions of climate change and disruption, we've heard from previous speakers today about Cyprus's work on sustainable development, and I think it's absolutely imperative both for state but also private sector actors to be innovative but also held accountable when it comes to taking the lead on questions of climate. When it comes to questions of public health, again, the importance of scientific innovation but a whole of government approach. Cyprus can take the lead on that for the region. And then finally, when it comes to issues of weapons proliferation of small weapons, but also WMD components is one of the other existential issues facing the planet. And Cyprus, as the intersection of three continents, Europe, Asia, and Africa, as an intersecting point for global migration flows from east to west and from south to north, again, witnesses all of these things, is threatened by them, but also can take the lead in innovative policies and new regulatory frameworks for addressing these.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Very important point you made. Public-private cooperation is now a must if we go ahead to deal with all these issues. And now let me turn my attention to Dr. Marcoullis. You've been a pioneer in more ways than one as a minister, when you served twice as a minister in two different administrations, the Minister of Foreign Affairs in Cyprus, not only because you were the first and still the only one female foreign minister, but because you open up the foreign policy agenda to many issues which are now becoming very relevant. To climate change, you spoke about gender rights, human rights, when you were forming the agenda for Cyprus diplomacy, gender equality, and of course, cultural diplomacy. And cultural diplomacy, Minister Marcoullis, is a subject very close to your heart, as far as I know. So, bearing in mind what Elizabeth has just said, do you think cultural diplomacy could be an important concept in taking us forward in cooperation in our region?
Let me first thank the organizers for inviting me, congratulate them for this very important initiative, and wish them every success in all future Cyprus forums. Let me also say hello to Elizabeth, my dear friend from the United States, with whom we worked very closely when I was ambassador for 5 years. You said it very well that one of the issues very close to my heart is cultural diplomacy, which I have used while being an ambassador, but also in my 2 tenures as foreign minister. I have always valued culture as a very, very important tool in foreign policy. Now, Cyprus may be a small country with regards to size and to population, but with its 10,000 years of history and civilization, believe me, in the areas of archaeology and history, we are a very, very important power. And I have witnessed this in all the symposia and all the fora that I participated in the context of archaeology and history. On the other hand, the area of the Middle East and East Mediterranean are both, to which of course Cyprus belongs, are both cradles of civilization, having been the home of some of the oldest civilizations in the world. This is why I always felt that we should utilize this very invaluable wealth in our foreign policy, but also primarily in realizing a vision for peace, stability, security, prosperity, sustainable development in this particular region. Cyprus also is a multicultural country. We are blessed to have Greek Cypriots, Turkish Cypriots, speaking Greek language, Turkish language, Christians, Muslims, Maronites, Armenians, and Latins. It's a very important wealth of cultures in our country. So Cyprus is in a unique position really to support, but also to promote initiatives that would bring together people not only from our own divided island, but also from the wider troubled region, as you characterized it, to bring them together, including academia, including researchers, including writers, artists, and musicians, bring them together in order to collaborate, in order to build bridges of mutual understanding. So Cyprus is really in a unique position to do that. What I envision for our region is a Middle East and East Mediterranean forum which would have as its main objective the promotion of dialogue, mutual understanding, and bringing together, as I said, people from all regions in order to promote what we are all seeking, which is peace and security. And for governments, of course, to use less hard power, which brings wars and suffering and destruction, and more soft power, which brings peace, understanding, and this is what we really need.
Okay, so soft power, and then we had the magic word, forums. We had a lot of fora being created in these coming weeks. We just had the Eastern Mediterranean Gas Forum, but I would like to pass on the floor to Damon Wilson, Vice President of the Atlantic Council. Hello, Damon. Thank you for being with us on a Saturday. So, Damon, how would you comment on this
notion? It's a pleasure to be with you from Washington.
How would you comment on this notion of minilateralism that we've just heard? What about the recent proposal of the ministry, and Ambassador Corneliu just conveyed this message again, about an additional forum that has to do with security on a regional level? You're a security expert and much more. We've talked about soft power and culture and religion, but what about security issues? Do you think a regional forum would actually be productive in this context?
I absolutely do. But first of all, Anna, thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure to join you from Washington and to have such terrific colleagues with whom I've interacted from Princeton to ECFR and the Atlantic Council throughout. Really good to be here, and thanks to the Cyprus Forum for organizing this. You rightly referenced the kickoff remarks from the Permanent Secretary, some of the Minister Christodoulides' ideas that I think are quite significant. And first, they're significant because what we see is the Republic of Cyprus not just being a recipient, a consumer, or an object of big debates out there, but really coming forward, coming to the table, bringing ideas forward. And I just want to applaud that. I like the way the minister has framed the Eastern Mediterranean as a region of opportunity, not just challenges. This focus on joint solutions and efforts, and particularly what you said, this effective minilateralism to combine an approach of multilateralism with regionalism. I think that's innovative. Cyprus at the heart of a web of partnerships, and in particular, this proposal for perhaps a new regional organization in the Eastern Med. I think that time has come because, as you said, from my perspective, looking at this in a security lens, the Eastern Med has become a zone of geostrategic competition. Although it's not the center of geopolitical competition globally, it very much is a zone. And we have to recognize that's not new. After all, it was Turkish Straits crisis, this Greek civil war that actually produced the Truman Doctrine, led to NATO today. But we really have entered a new phase where we've seen two big trends. One, presence of great powers like Russia and China, from Russia and its actions in Ukraine to Syria in particular, Russian-Chinese naval exercises in the region. But even more importantly for the countries and the citizens of the region are the rise of challenges around non-proliferation, refugee flows, human trafficking, some of the WMD, and obviously some of these energy issues. And so I think despite all the news about the tensions and the challenges, we should think about this as an opportunity. U.S.-Greek relations are at a high point. We've actually done more remarkable things with the Republic of Cyprus, just lifting the arms embargo, if you will. And that while there are some countervailing pressures here in the United States, we want to see more European action, greater regional coordination. The U.S. is energy sufficient now. It wants a more restrained role in issues like Syria and Libya. We, at the same time, see heightened bipartisan political interests in the Eastern Med Act, and our capability to project power remain unrivaled there. And our commitment to really using new instruments of security cooperation, as well as using private sector investment with the new commitment of the Overseas Development Finance Corporation to really leverage increased American investment in the region. I think this all comes together in a sense of a bit of a kernel of a strategy that was emerging in the Trump administration, I think can continue regardless of how American elections tie out. That there's a focus on bolstering our democratic cooperation in this region. There's a focus on working with all of our partners to keep Turkey in the strategic West. And I think there's a real interest in how a new multilateral framework can help address common challenges of counterterrorism, of WMD proliferation, of human trafficking and migration. And I think the elements of a new regional organization, perhaps even based in Cyprus with a view of connecting the dots across these continents, these regions, could position the region for a much better longer-term base for stability in the future.
Okay, well, that's quite encouraging news. The American power really still wants to be unrivaled in the area, despite what we might have been thinking. But you've also mentioned something important, Damon, and this leads me to the next question to Asli Aydıntaşbaş. And sorry, Asli, if I'm pronouncing your name terribly, I apologize for that. Damon talked about the need for the Europeans to do more. And the issue of the day, the issue of contention in at least these past 2 weeks in Cyprus, of course, is the European Union, and not just Cyprus's European Union relationship, but the relationship, or at least the future relationship between Turkey and the European Union. And my question to you, you're a senior policy fellow at the European Council for Foreign Relations, you're a very well-known journalist, your opinion is very valued to this panel. The question is the following, I mean, does Turkey really want to be in the EU, or are we just discussing this, for the sake of discussing it? And why is Turkey so much bothered about the sanctions? Because it's become like a dirty word that, President Erdogan doesn't want to hear about. So what is your opinion on this?
Good afternoon, and Kalispera, Anna. Thanks for inviting me for this forum and allowing me to speak to your audience. It's great to be here in the same time zone as opposed to your other guests who are joining from farther away. But let me say a couple of things, both on your question and on this sort of larger region that we're looking into. I would be lying to you if I say that today's Turkey is as interested in the European Union as it was a decade ago. We're clearly seeing the emergence of a more resurgent Turkey. There is clearly a surge in nationalism, but also a doctrine that defines Turkey's security interests as almost very closely with having a military presence outside its borders. Hence, you're seeing Turkish presence in Libya, in Syria, and now in the Caucasus, in the Azeri-Armenian front. But I have to say there's something else that is very remarkable here, which is that the tensions we've seen in the East Med are also, in some sense, a result of a Middle East fault line, that is to say, between Turkey on one side and UAE and Israel and others on the other side, being now instrumentalized in a European space. This is remarkable because we've never had an import of a Middle East conflict battle line into the European space. Is Turkey interested in the EU today? What I see is a sense of marginalization. And I think it's a very dangerous syndrome in some sense, a sense that Turkey is, East Mediterranean is against Turkey. There's a whole lineup of countries that are against Turkey. There's the rise of an axis against Turkey and all. It's always been, Turkey's marginalization has always been a problem in this region. In fact, in the late 90s and 2000s, part of the main reasons for Greece and other countries in the region to support Turkey's EU accession was precisely to avoid a situation in which Turkey is marginalized. So what we are seeing now is two Middle East, a very significant Middle East fault line being imported into the European theater, and a sense of marginalization in Ankara. In that sense, is Turkey going to pursue the EU accession track? The EU accession track is pretty much frozen right now. It's not technically over, but it is frozen for all intensive purposes on both sides, both in terms of Turkey's evolution towards Copenhagen criteria and also no appetite to move forward on the European side. I would say that we have to all collectively think and worry about this sort of lone wolfism of syndrome that is becoming more and more significant in Turkey, and try to find ways of constructive engagement between European Union and Turkey. If the old regime, old arrangement, that is to say accession process, is not working, and it is clearly not working, perhaps we need an interim arrangement, a more transactional one, perhaps something based on migration, trade. Definitely, one of the steps that came out of this week's EU summit, that is to say, convening a large Mediterranean forum, is, I think, a good idea. There are other ideas such as upgrading or thinking of the migration deal. It can be transactional, but we need to somehow, once again, create a functional and structured relationship between Turkey and Europe, because as it is, it's not only is it not working, even the channels of communication are not working, and that's really not good for long-term interests. I think that for this region, clearly, what would bring most stability is more of a win-win formula for everyone. And it's certainly not being seen as such either in Turkey or in Turkey's, across on with the other countries in the East Med. It's more of a win-lose, I win, you lose, or you win, I lose kind of a situation. And I think we need to get out of that once again using Europe and European Union as an anchor.
Thank you. As time is very short, I would ask my virtual guest to allow me the last question to Minister Marcoullis, who's here with me on the panel. Minister, let me ask you this. Are you happy with the EU's approach towards Turkey? Because, I mean, the phrase of the day is we're using a carrot and stick policy. A lot of people would say it's lots of carrots and no stick. Asli made the very good point, even if it's transactional, we need to keep the relationship going and the channels of communication open. What is your take on this?
I will concentrate primarily on the recently adopted conclusions. Yesterday, the European Council had a special session to examine this particular issue of the Eastern Mediterranean and in particular its relations with Turkey. So I will try to concentrate on that. I think Asli already referred to the accession process, and I think this was, and I think it remains at least formally the aim of the European Union to engage Turkey, to get Turkey to the point that it will abide by the values and the principles and the rules of the European Union. So ultimately, if conditions which apply for all candidate countries are applicable to Turkey, Turkey could become a member. This is the framework of the relationship of Turkey as a candidate country. Unfortunately, as Asli said, this relationship and this process has frozen, I would say primarily because of Turkey's behavior. But, I mean, there is a lot of room for discussion on that. Coming to the Council, European Council meeting, which of course was the result of recent actions on the part of Turkey. And when I say recent, they date back about 10 years ago with the illegal explorations in Cyprus EEZ, but more recently in illegal drilling in Cyprus EEZ and in the exploration also in the continental shelf of Greece. This was the situation that the European Union was facing. The two countries came very close to a brink of conflict. So the European Union had to tackle this issue. And we came to the European Council. I think the European Council, and here I would like to say that I am quite satisfied with the results, gave some very clear messages, but also some very clear guidance to Turkey. First, that Turkey should terminate these illegal and lawful actions, but also abstain from these unilateral actions in the future. Second, to engage in dialogue, in negotiations, both with Greece, but also with Cyprus, in order to delineate the respective exclusive economic zones, but also the EEZ between them. And third, which is very important, and it's an issue that I put utmost priority, is the Cyprus issue, where Turkey is asked to support, but also to commit to the resumption of the negotiations under the UN framework, to support a solution that is in line with the UN Security Council resolutions, mentioning also two very important ones relating to Famagusta, and this is a very specific message to Turkey. So Turkey now has two options, two tracks, as the President of the European Council said, either to follow this first path, that it was outlined very clearly, and if this is the case, then the European Union has already adopted and outlined a very important positive agenda for Turkey. But if it doesn't follow this path and goes back to the unlawful behavior, then the European Union is ready to follow the options and the instruments that already are provided. So this is the time of diplomacy. This is the time of dialogue. The European Union has given a period of that Turkey could respond in a positive way. For me, as I said, the most important thing is the resumption of the negotiations. So this environment provides a good opportunity for all players to engage in a resumption of the negotiations and, of course, a speedy solution of the Cyprus problem.
Well, let's all wish this comes true very, very soon. Too many questions, too little time. I'm afraid we really have to go, running out of time. And I wish we meet again and discuss all these issues, because my hunch is that this will be an almost never-ending story, especially the Cyprus problem. So thank you everybody. Thank you for joining us, Asli, Damon, Elizabeth, and Dr. Marcoullis.